Good morning and welcome to SnapTech IT's monthly webinar for May 2025. My name is Ted Hulsy and I'm Chief Revenue Officer at SnapTech IT and your host for today's event. Thanks for joining in for the live session. This webinar will be recorded and circulated to all registrants. You can also visit us on our YouTube channel for all of our content on demand. The topic for today is what is Microsoft Copilot Studio and how do I create a custom Copilot? Today I'm joined by my colleague and vCIO, Todd Metivier. Todd, welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you. It's not often that technical people are allowed to get out of the think tank dungeon. So thank you for having me.
Okay, well, it's good to have you, Todd. And so everybody realizes kind of how our vCIOs engage with our clients. The vCIOs are our top technical talent in usually each of our offices. And they help prospective clients, go through assessments and understand what their environments are like and how we can potentially help them. And then for our clients, the vCIOs are the top technical resource that our clients can access, usually on a strategic basis and a quarterly basis. So Todd works very closely with our account managers and is the technical advisor to our clients. So Todd, it's great to have you here. You're true expert in the AI space, so we're really thrilled to have you join us today for the live demo. So I want to encourage everybody, try to ask questions as we go along. Let's keep it interactive. That's the whole value of joining us today for the live session. Before we get into today's content, we do like to spend just 2 minutes letting you know who SnapTech IT is. We always have clients on these events. We have people who might already know us, but there's usually a lot of people who don't really know who we are. They're just interested in the topic. So we do want to spend 2 minutes letting you know who we are. SnapTech IT is a cybersecurity first managed service provider with operations in Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, Arizona, and the San Francisco Bay Area. We help clients with their technology. We provide IT outsourcing services. Our point of view is that technology should solve problems, not create them. But really in the technology world every day, every time we think things are going to get easier, there's still tons and tons of challenges. And so our, prospective clients come to us with frustrated employees. Maybe they're suffering downtime. Maybe their infrastructure has not been upgraded in years and they're suffering a lot of the consequences of that, or they're losing sleep about cybersecurity risks. And what we do is we put in place our proven process. We give our clients a technology plan. We give them a predictable IT budget and roadmap, and we implement our best practices, which solves a whole host of different problems for our clients. It allows the employees of our clients to be happy and productive, to work anywhere, to get friendly and fast support when things break, and things always break in the technology world. Even when there's a great MSP looking after you, stuff does break, and people need support all the time. And so that's one of our main missions in life, is to provide you that fast and friendly support. And ultimately, our clients get peace of mind because they know their cybersecurity is being looked after by professionals. We engage with our clients in 2 different ways. If you're a smaller organization and you don't have anybody with IT on their badge, we provide fully outsourced managed IT services. If you're a larger company and you have an internal IT team, an IT director, an IT manager, or a whole team, we also partner with larger organizations that give them extra capacity and to provide outsourced services to them, to those areas that will help them be more successful as an organization. And we call that co-managed IT. So that's it about SnapTech IT. Let's look at today's agenda. We're going to be really focused around Copilot Studio. But we do want to first start out with just a quick refresher to make sure everybody's grounded a little bit in terms of Microsoft Copilot. We're doing a lot of marketing around Copilot. We're a big Microsoft shop, if you will. Probably 90% of our clients leverage Microsoft 365. And so Copilot's a really big deal because we view it as one of the best on-ramps for most organizations to get AI into the hands of employees every day in a very productive and secure way. There's lots of different AI solutions out there, but we think Copilot and Microsoft's approach is a winner and is going to be a massive impact on how we do our work every day. But we're going to go really one level deeper today by looking at Copilot Studio and how organizations can leverage generative AI technology to build your own custom chatbots and agents and copilots in your own environment, leveraging your own data. Todd's going to give a live demo, and then we definitely want to take your questions as we go along. So let's keep trucking here. The very first thing I want to do is just make sure we have a level set on what is Microsoft Copilot. Just a branding topic first. Microsoft does not have exclusive kind of copyright or trademark, if you will, on the term Copilot. It's a great name, I think, for the way Microsoft is thinking about how AI can impact how users interact with software and technology. And so really every Microsoft product will have a Copilot, is kind of the key theme that we want to kind of clarify here first. So in most cases with Microsoft, it's an add-on subscription to the core software tool you're paying for today. You add Copilot and you get that AI functionality. We're going to be really focused today on Copilot for Microsoft 365. I think this graph I think is very helpful because it kind of distinguishes what's really unique about Microsoft's approach to AI technology. I'm sure everybody on the call today has used ChatGPT. It's one of the most quickly adopted technologies in history. OpenAI, it was the innovator behind ChatGPT. It's a hugely successful product, but there's some drawbacks into how ChatGPT got kind of launched on the market and how business users started to use it. Because the very first thing a lot of people started to do in the workplace is take their internal content, their internal documents, their internal legal briefs and contracts and all this sort of stuff. They started uploading them into ChatGPT. And the problem with that is that that's a highly insecure way to leverage an AI tool because you're not protected from OpenAI incorporating your content into the large language model. So, I mean, you can do cool things when you feed your content to an AI tool, but you got to do it in a responsible way, in a way that protects your intellectual property and protects your client privacy and the like. So Microsoft's approach is to really think about all of the content inside of your organization. We're talking about your email, your Teams messages, your recorded meetings, everything that's living in OneDrive and SharePoint. This is what's called your Microsoft Graph. And Microsoft, when you subscribe to Copilot, they ground that data, meaning you're able to use Copilot to incorporate your own internal content to leverage the AI tool, but your internal content is not incorporated into the large language model. It's kept private. The other really cool thing that Microsoft has done is they've really thought hard about where AI should live. And the reality is that I think if you look at Microsoft's approach across the whole market, they kind of view it as like, AI should be like your assistant, your Copilot. It should be living right inside the applications you already know and use every day. And so what's really innovative about Copilot is that it operates within applications that we've all been using for years, like Word or PowerPoint or Teams or Excel or Outlook. And so that's like they've actually incorporated that functionality right into the applications themselves. While at the same time, whether you're using crafting a memo in Word or using Copilot to create an email for you, you can also leverage the large language model. So you can do both. You can leverage your own internal content that's grounded, or you can leverage the larger content from the web that's been incorporated in the large language model. So that's really what makes Copilot quite unique in the market. You don't have a user experience where you're toggling back and forth from ChatGPT into your workflow. Just a quick comment, so Copilot and the traditional Office apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, that sort of thing, there's a consumer, prosumer versions of the product, and then there's the commercial version of the product, which is kind of called Copilot for Microsoft 365. We're going to be focused there today, and really what you see is the main difference between, say, the prosumer versions and Copilot for Microsoft 365 is important applications that we use every day, like Teams and that sort of thing, are included with Copilot for Microsoft 365, including the full capabilities of Copilot Studio. Another thing to think about is, probably most of the organizations on today's webinar are using Microsoft 365 as a commercial customer, what you noticed probably in kind of like Q3 of 2024 is that when you would log into the Microsoft 365 portal to access all of your apps, you all of a sudden noticed that Copilot chat was available. So when you log into office.com or Microsoft365.com and you click on that Copilot icon, you can get a chat GPT-like experience right inside the Microsoft suite. So whether you're licensed or not, you can do searches and research and have it generate content for you. Basically a lot of the same things you can do with ChatGPT. And that's free. And that's freely available today. And that was rolled out kind of mid-2024 or Q3 2024 to all customers worldwide. But what you'll notice is that if you're not a licensed user, you can't use Copilot in Teams or Outlook or Word or Excel. And then certain functionalities, if you're on the free version, are rate limited or feature deficient in some way versus the full licensed version. So that's kind of the the lay of the land a little bit. In terms of what Copilot costs, it costs roughly $30 per user per month if you pay for the annual version, which is $360 a year, or you can pay the month-to-month version, which is $31.50 a month. So what's cool about that is that they, mid-2024, they also introduced the month-to-month version. So that gives basically any customer the opportunity to really kick the tires pretty affordably and get in there and use it without having to think about and contemplate an annual license. So that's kind of helpful. So that's the kind of the overall context of Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. Now we want to change gears and talk about Copilot Studio and how this fits in. And I'm going to make some introductory remarks here over the next 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm going to hand the ball to Todd, and Todd's going to get in there and actually demo the product for you. I want to remind you, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the Q&A feature and go to webinar. But let's kind of dive into Copilot Studio. So the first thing is that just to think about the reality of conversational AI. This is just some data points from research analysts, folks like Gartner. But one of the things that Gartner predicts is that by 2026, 30% of work activities will use some sort of conversationally enabled technology. And for those of you who are already using Copilot or ChatGPT on a day-to-day basis, I think you see that you're able to do some amazing things from a productivity perspective, and anytime you have a business challenge or a question or a research topic, you're immediately turning around to a generative AI tool to help you get that done. By the same token, artificial intelligence is going to really change how work gets done and how customer support is achieved. And they're predicting that there will be literally tens of billions of dollars of labor savings for organizations by 2026. And I was at a local Microsoft event in San Francisco just a couple weeks back, and their chief commercial officer was on stage, and he was talking about how Microsoft is literally saving billions of dollars internally with their own support by leveraging their own technology internally to provide evolved support experiences to their customers. And Microsoft's a massive company, and they employ tens of thousands of people doing support every day across all of their different product lines. And they're seeing massive savings by leveraging conversational AI technology as a way to cut down on client inquiries, because you create a more self-serve experience. But you also just make agents themselves more productive when you turn over the right information and the right tools to them. And then, they're even predicting that we're going to be, interacting more and more with kind of virtual agents on just a very routine basis. So if we think about what is Copilot Studio? So Copilot Studio at the highest level is the ability to leverage generative AI for your own organization in your Microsoft environment, and to build your own chatbots and copilots for different work tasks. And so, we all have seen, we've all experienced, how you can use how a generative AI solution is, interacts with you in a chat-based manner. The reality is you can take a subset, a certain workflow internally, a certain set of tasks internally, a certain set of support experiences that you would provide to either internal employees or externally to customers and clients, and you can build your own chatbot with your own content to deliver a support experience or a knowledge experience or a workflow that's custom to yourself. And so why are we doing this? I mean, the business challenges are, we have tons of manually intensive tasks in the workplace. We're all, every organization is trying to figure out how to be more efficient, how to do more with less, how to maximize those precious dollars we spend on employee costs. We're trying to make the support, customer service experience better, and generating your own copilots or chatbots allows you to automate things, reduce manual labor, and provide a more instant and personalized support experience. And the other thing is that I think when we look at AI, the art of leveraging AI in an organization is not about just turning to ChatGPT and copying content from the web or doing kind of generic research. It's about leveraging your own know-how as an organization, your own knowledge bases, your own intellectual property, your own decades of experience in a particular industry or vertical. That's where the secret sauce is, where you can marry your own content internally at an organization and add the power of generative AI to it by putting it on top of your own knowledge and know-how and IP to create customized experiences for your internal employees or for your customers. That's really where the secret sauce of leveraging AI is you take out the manually intensive parts, you provide a better chat-based experience to your content, but you leverage your own intellectual property internally. And then the other thing is that you have to think about all the different ways people want to interact with you. Maybe they want to interact with you via a web interface or via Microsoft Teams, or you want to publish something externally to your website or to a client portal, et cetera. So one of the key things you want to think about with generating your own copilots is where do you actually publish them? And then how do you manage them over time? Anything you're going to build, there's going to be kind of I don't know how to say this, but there's going to be like expectations will be high, reality will be a lot lower. And so you've always got to get better, right? So, the initial value won't be there until you make the tweaks that are needed to kind of perfect whatever support experience you're trying to deliver. So you have to continually analyze your copilots and your chatbots, tweak them over time, make them better, improve the experience, and leverage the some of the data and analytics that you need to actually make things better. So Copilot Studio, what is it? It's available as a commercial tool to anyone who's licensed to Copilot from Microsoft 365. It allows you to build your own custom copilots. It allows you to connect various data sources and knowledge to the Copilot, so you can connect it to your own SharePoint repository, or you can connect it to knowledge bases of various kinds. There's connectors to different third-party applications, so that you can leverage the knowledge you have inside your organization already. You can feed it a constrained set of documents. And I think that just kind of reminds me to comment on something. Like, one of the big problems with AI is authority and trust. So, I think when you're accessing any sort of AI tool, there's hallucination, there's what is the source of this knowledge, and that sort of thing. And so when you're actually trying to provide internal support to your employees or provide a support experience to your customers, you want to make sure you're providing authoritative information. And so really one of the key things there is you want to constrain the set of knowledge that you're putting into the Copilot so that it's trustworthy and authoritative. So really another part of the art here is figuring out who's your user, how are you trying to support them, what is the knowledge we have to help make their world better, either give them support or support a colleague in some sort of internal workflow. And then the knowledge you give the chatbot or Copilot has to be constrained and authoritative. So that's one thing you're able to do, and Todd's going to show you all about that. And then you need to then figure out, well, where am I going to publish this Copilot? Where am I going to make it available? Am I going to make it available in Teams or on a website? And then the other really amazing thing you can do is then you can trigger activities from it. So the chatbot can not just provide information back and forth to the user, but it can actually gather that information that is supplied by the user and then take action and go automate certain tasks by connecting the Copilot to things like the Power Automate platform in Microsoft, which is their robotic process automation platform that allows you to actually do things like trigger activities, send emails, fill out forms, complete documents, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, you want to be able to manage the whole thing in your Microsoft environment. So today we're going to show you how to customize your Copilot, how to give it unique knowledge that you have, how to trigger certain activities and actions, how to refine the logic that the chatbot uses, and then to figure out where you publish it. Now, a couple different comments on use cases. I mean, it's really, pick your industry, pick your role, pick your business problem. There's a ton of different things you can think about how to use this technology. A lot of organizations are kind of take care of their own IT support, and so you could connect your IT knowledge base to a Copilot so that employees can consult the chatbot before they actually ask an IT support person for help. You could have details about your projects and allow, say you've got 50 or 100 projects ongoing at any one time, and you have a certain employee who's going to triage that and try to be a traffic cop on it. They can use a chatbot to kind of get status updates on various projects. There's lots and lots of very routine requests that need to happen in like IT support, like, hey, we need to, somebody in HR needs to order a new laptop for a new employee coming on board. You can create a chatbot to basically automate that process of gathering the right information that's needed and to trigger the workflow to actually get that equipment ordered. So it's, all the equipment sitting on the desk of the new employee, giving them a great onboarding experience as they join as a new employee. And the list really goes on in terms of different things you can do. One thing to comment on is that it's kind of like a full-time job keeping track of how Microsoft changes the names of various different products. But just one thing to comment upon is that Microsoft has been building a lot of this functionality and capabilities for a long time in the Power Automate platform. And the Copilot term is, so they have customers that have been using their automation platform for years. And then really the generative AI wave that kind of washed over the whole market 2 years ago in 2023 has really shaken up the whole market. And now, comparing automation with generative AI is the new holy grail, if you will. And so what you see is there's tons of big companies that have been leveraging Copilot Studio and its predecessors to build internal and external workflows to automate certain things. So don't let the names fool you. I mean, this is like any technology. Enterprises are always going to be at the bleeding edge because they have the biggest budgets, they have the biggest financial problems, they have the biggest incentive to use technology to solve massive problems. But this technology always trickles down, right? And it always comes down to the mid-market and the SMB market as it gets easier to use, as it gets more stable, as it gets more predictable. And so really what we're seeing is, these big companies have leveraged Copilot Studio, but today we're seeing more and more of our clients really get excited about implementing this technology in their own businesses. I like this City of Kelowna case study because I think it's a really good one. If you don't know where Kelowna is, it's a kind of a medium-sized city in British Columbia, or maybe it's in Alberta, but it's Western Canada. And it's basically the problem that they had is that their old building permit process was like, hey, download these PDF forms, fill them out, scan them, upload them. And so you had a whole bunch of people like doing double data entry, and who wants to actually like fill out a PDF, handwrite a PDF and upload something to a city at this day and age, right? And so the City of Kelowna built a Copilot, formerly Power Virtual Agents, and they built a chatbot where literally citizens of the city could just interact with the chatbot, answer all the questions that the chatbot had for them about the project that they needed a permit for, and the chatbot would automatically populate all of the data into their systems to create that the building permit that was required. So I just think that's like kind of like that's a layup. That's exactly what we want to do. And if you think about all the different things you can do in your organization, or all the different challenges and manual tasks and rework that people have to do, this is the sort of stuff we want to get past, and we want to leverage this sort of technology to build it. So just to kind of wrap us up here before turning it over to Todd, Microsoft 365 is Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's embedded in the Microsoft apps. It's out of the box. It's very easy to use. All you do is open Word and say, hey, help me create a memo about this. And it's kind of like available to every employee really quick. Custom Copilots are different, where we're gonna have more nuance in terms of where we can publish them. We're gonna be able to be very discriminating in terms of like what data sources we feed it. We're going to be able to customize the workflow and the logic and the workflow. And then, it's not that easy to, it's fairly technical to set these up, even though it's considered kind of a low code environment. It does require quite a bit of technical skill to configure these, but this is really, in our point of view, the way to take generative AI to another level inside of an organization to unlock further levels of productivity and success for your company. And so with that, let's get over to a demo, and I'm going to turn it over to Todd. So Todd, let me make you the presenter.
All right.
Okay. All right. So you're now the presenter, Todd, and take it away.
Let me get the correct things shared here. All right. Excellent. So thank you, Ted. That's great information. You can see that very good.
Yes. Yep. We can see you. See your screen.
Great. So yeah, the general purpose of Microsoft and the Copilot Studio is to empower you guys to build and deploy custom AI copilots. And that's basically what Ted was saying there, and without extensive coding knowledge. The idea is that just a few years ago, it did require some coding knowledge, and I had to look into Python and some languages like JSON to figure out how to create something that would respond in a way that I was looking for. So this is fantastic. The studio here is copilotstudio.microsoft.com, is not accessible unless you have that Copilot license. So keeping that in mind, for your team, not everybody requires a license either. If you're going to be an organization where you're designing agents for your staff to use, you could do that, or have an IT specialist do that, or a designated person do that for whatever the job or the need is, and then they can share that with the team, and they can utilize that inside systems, and we're going to go over that. So that's kind of the how and why you build a custom agent was kind of described there, as far as the many different possible ways. And you can even see here in the middle of the page, like exploring agents that are just defaulted here from Microsoft, like financial insights or IT related or HR related. And we're going to kind of go at a high level as far as the interface overview, how to build it, what we're going to basic as far as training and test and refine it, and then deploy it, share it basically, and show that how it's done. So while we're just basically going to go into an internal HR documentation design. So we can kind of go over that, and I'll show you the basics of that. So my first response in this system is, well, first of all, looking at the Copilot Studio website as a whole. When you start at it, in the home area, it will give you some options and even ask you a question right at the top, very much like a GPT situation. Talk about words that are hard to understand or abbreviations. The GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Don't even try to digest that. And then language models behind that, the LLMs you might have seen referred to, large language models are what Copilot and GPT and stuff like that are designed on. But anyway, the idea here is to create the agents and the customized agents. So we're going to go into the agents section, and you'll see that with this test user, I've created a few agents in reference to a compliance situation or a quarterly business review situation. And today we're gonna add an additional agent. Then we're gonna talk a little bit about the agents that were pre-built and why there's different types of agents and needs there. But the idea here is that when I'm building a new agent, it's gonna come up with a wizard, and then we're gonna go into a little bit of the back end of that and be more specific about what we want it to do. So I'm gonna bring this down to a more manageable window. And it's going to start the wizard in a description point of view. And I'm just going to copy and paste my description to make things a little bit faster here. And I'm going to give it basically, an expectation of like a new employee. You basically want to create an assistant with a specific job. So really think about this. It can be up to 2,000 characters long, and you can be very verbose of what you want it to be like and responsibilities. And I recommend being as much conversational detail that you can get your point across. So I'm just going to put in a quick sentence here about the agent and what I want it to accomplish. It's going to think about that sentence or that description, and you'll see over there on the side that it's outlining what that means to it, and it will consider what you said. And then next we'll move on to an agent name, and it's suggesting HR policy assistant. I'm going to change that and make it specifically my company's. So I'm going to give it HR Snap Internal Assistant as a name. So it will physically change the name over there. You can kind of see that we're building it. And next we're going to give it some behavior, and we want to think about this as well. Give it some more detail about how it should respond to questions. Take some time to really define how you want this agent to be or perform, like a person, like an employee. You're setting your expectations as if it's an interview. And now your agent is starting to take shape because you're telling it what you want it to be, how you want it to be that accomplishment. It's not fully created yet, but you're starting to take that shape and tell it what to do. It's now asking, what do you want to do if the situation is, the answers are not coming to you. So next you want to basically understand here, if there's a situation that it cannot answer, what should you do? So I'm going to put in here, if you cannot answer the question, and then I'm just going to paste the rest. I'm going to refer to our HR representative, Jane Doe, with a fictional number and specific details, but I'm kind of shaping it a little bit more, just in case what we build here is not going to accomplish. So very good. We got some more details. It takes that information, and it's kind of got it there. And then I'm going to click on Create Agent. This part of it here is really just starting the form of the specific agent so that we have it, so that we can put additional information into it. We've created our base agent with its intention, its job. And now this is where we want to truly make our agent with further defining the agent in a powerful way. We're going to add specific knowledge to the agent. It's going to give us a lot of options here on this page, a lot of things that we could do right now. We're going to scroll down to the knowledge area here, and it's enabled, but it has no knowledge in there. This is the backend knowledge or specific details that you want it to reference. Now, being that we're in the Microsoft environment, we're going to add knowledge from SharePoint, which is just an area where I have prepared shared content. You can have a lot of different places you can share content or have shared content. We have the Ignite system that we use for shared content on the cloud. There's OneDrive and SharePoint and a lot of other places, but we're going to browse the SharePoint area, and we're going to see under a particular section that we have a lot of different departments, a folder structure you might be familiar with. Your accounting team, your executive team, HR, IT, all of that kind of stuff. We're interested in this case in the HR section and the HR employee section. I'm going to confirm that and add that as a knowledge piece. Well, that saves here. The next thing that we're going to be interested in doing, and by the way, there's a couple sections I'm just going to quickly explain here. There's actions and triggers. There's really cool things that you can make happen based on a certain keyword or question that happens. Maybe you want to redirect the person to do this or do that, or even fill out a form. Other things that Ted was referencing earlier. Over here on the right side, we have a test your agent. And before I go into actually doing some test questions, we're going to basically show you. I'm going to click on the test here. We're going to show you the content that I basically added here. So going back to SharePoint, in this particular case, we have that file structure I was telling you about, and inside of that file structure, I have an employee folder with a document. This can be dozens of documents, hundreds of documents. This particular document here is what I'm using, and it just has some basic details about the HR and the environment. I also put information about a link, other things like that, but for right now, we're going to use our test, and we're going to ask, what is our sick time allotment? And I did not spell allotment right, but it doesn't matter, because with a generative model, it's actually going to spell check and understand. What's really cool over here in the activity map of the test is it's showing us what it's doing. It's actually looking into the knowledge sources that we basically specify for this agent. So it's going into the SharePoint folder, into the document, and then it's giving us some information, an actual response. This is just a test of what we're trying to find based on where we're getting that information. I'm going to ask another question about bereavement options, and I did not specify anything about bereavement in the documentation. So what is it going to do? It says it can't find anything, there's no results found, and then it refers back to that question I originally did while I was setting it up. Why don't you refer to the HR person, Jane Doe. There's her email address and her phone number for further information. So now you've seen a couple of ideas of where we're getting that specific knowledge-based information. You're understanding that the human language of the responses there is being accomplished. And I didn't even spell words correctly. It's still understanding those questions, looking for the information and giving you a result. So I'm going to publish this. And that means I'm going to basically make it a real agent that's available for me to use. It's not publishing it for anybody else to use at this point. Just take a moment. The next part we're going to go over is how would we make this available to other people. It says I can do this without actually waiting. Another question that comes up quite often is it available to everybody when I do something like that, publish it, create it? No, it's not. This is another browser with another user. It's called the account manager for example purposes, and they don't see that. I'm actually going to bring up Teams as well so that you can kind of see here, as we're sitting here with the IT person that created that agent, that there's nothing changed here with Teams yet. It has previous agents that I've created, but basically just has my regular Teams that I'm familiar and comfortable with. I'm going to go into the settings now that it's been published of this agent. I'm going to go back actually to the agents list and look at that again, seeing that the HR is there, and I'm going to click on that specifically and get some more details again. Everything that I saw earlier is available to me. I can change it. Because I gave it a folder, I can add additional content into that folder later and get different results and queries. I can edit the document and add more additional information, or modify the agent and republish it. But I'm going to go into channels. What we're interested in today for the demo is to show how we're going to make it available in Teams. I'm going to click on Add Channel. Again, this doesn't mean that it's available to everybody yet, but from a technical perspective, it makes it possible. And then I have availability options. I have a link that I can share with staff, but that still doesn't mean they can access it with that link. I can go to manage sharing and actually assign specific permissions. My IT person here, for example, is currently the only one allowed. Everyone in the organization has no access otherwise. So if I wanted to add the account manager, it will come up in my address book, just like any other person or employee of the staff would come up, and I can add them with specific access. I can make them an editor or just a viewer, or I can cancel this and not do either. Now, as far as going back to the properties of the availability, I'm just going to X out of that and go back to the properties again. Accessibility options. Again, the copying the link and the manage the sharing. If I copy the link right now and I put it in my browser, it's going to open up in Teams, and I have a fantastic new agent that I can add into Teams. One thing I like to do when creating these type of things or sharing them with other staff, I'm going to open it, is I like to pin it. So I like to right click and pin it so it stays there. If it disappeared and wasn't there in the list anymore, you can always just go to this triple dot and search for the item, QBR or HR, whatever I created, for example, and then I could pin it that way as well. But that brings up the agent for me, and then I can use it to start asking the same questions that I did in the test environment, or different questions, whatever the case may be. Now, if I switch this over to my account manager, and I open up the same link, the app cannot be found because I haven't granted it access. That person doesn't have access yet to see or use that agent. So these are some of the great things. Now, if I go back into my other person, just so happens I'm logged into both people in this particular case, so I can switch very quickly. I have the agent available to me and ready to use at a moment's notice. I also have the Copilot, just the generic Copilot in Teams, so I could just go to that and straight up do any type of questions internally or externally in that regard. So then I just wanted to sum it up with some final details on the agent itself. If we go back into the settings, we can get kind of fancy with any type of agent. We can go into the details of it and try and get back into the main section. I'm just going to refresh Copilot because sometimes my browser can't handle all these things in a sandbox. Even Chrome's asking me to make it faster. So I was going to go into the settings, and you can change the icon, get into more details and stuff like that. But the point is that you can change it, add additional skills and details. I'm going to go back to the overview, and that's where I had some basic information here. What do you think?
So Todd, a couple questions came in as you were building out the final steps of the agent. So one of the first ones comes from Hayden, and he says, can the agents be embedded in internal sites?
Yes, they can. There's quite a bit of different ways that you can use these agents. Of course, being security minded and security conscious, you always want to take whatever data and knowledge base information and make sure that that's specific to that environment, or that if it's public, for example, you want to make sure that the shared content that you upload to an area such as a website or shared area is content that you want in that environment and publicly shared.
Right. So I mean, I think so you need to think through who's your user of the agent, right? And then if it's internal content, can you talk a little bit about so how does authentication work? I mean, if you had, for example, with the account manager, if you had granted them access, they would have immediately have had access because they were already logged in via Teams?
Once we grant them the specific access, and I'll go through the motions again by going into the agent and going into the channels and the Teams section of this particular environment, and then the availability and manage sharing. There's quite a few steps to get to this point. I understand it's a little bit complicated. Once we get into there and we grant that person, anybody that's worked with, by the way, like SharePoint and stuff like that, would be pretty familiar with this type of permission environment. But we're going to add them as a viewer only. And when we go back, we have to share it. And we could send them an email with a link, by the way. But we're going to share it, giving them that permission. I'm going to switch over my Teams over to the account manager. And you can see the permissions have changed. And when I go back in there, because I'm not using email right now or going that deep into the Office environment, I'm going to go back to copy link. And in a browser tab, just use that where it will open up in Teams. And you'll now notice that the account manager can add it. Now they can't edit this. They can't see the back end of the agent because I only gave them that viewability, but they can definitely add it and continue using it from this point. They're now authorized to do that. One of the other things I forgot to mention was of the other agents. I was going to reference those real quick. Is that not only internal information is always what you're looking for. So I'm going to go back and refresh this to go back to the point where I have the agent list. and show you the power of the agent in a different way. If it's using public information, you can direct it. The CMMC client agent, for example, those that are not familiar with manufacturing compliance levels, the CMMC and many other certification levels are there for different needs. You've probably heard of PCI compliance and HIPAA compliance and that kind of thing. The CMMC, which is a cybersecurity maturity model certification, is basically business showing that they meet a certain standard when it comes to control information, especially with the government, and they have different levels and stuff like that. So when I use a CMMC client agent, I just wanted to show you in the settings of it that I'm telling it to go to a lot of public information, a lot of public data, where I didn't do that for the HR one. I wanted to keep that internal. I utilized a lot of public information from the federal government, CyberAb, for example, here. This address is incorrect here. It wasn't pasted correctly, but the DoD and NIST, and it would get its detail from those particular websites, keeping you from having to browse that website and get those specific informations when you ask it a question in relationship to the compliance that you're interested in. What else do we have for questions?
So kind of related to that, Guillermo asks, do users need to have a Copilot license to use the agent?
Yeah, and they do not. That's the staff can be shared an agent once you build it with the knowledge base behind it and its direction and even triggers and actions and stuff like that, all shared as just an agent on the side of Teams or within Copilot for them to utilize, and they do not need licensing to use it.
Right. So you can expose agents to customers, clients, internal employees, but the only person who needs to be licensed is the person who's actually engineering the Copilot, actually building the Copilot, building the agents themselves.
Correct.
So,
or setting the permissions in a way, if you look at it that way, if they're not necessarily building the agent or setting the permissions or want to modify what that agent has for a knowledge base, all of that is going to require licensing to accomplish.
Yeah. So Todd, what do you feel like is the biggest challenge for anybody on today's call who's kind of thinking about doing this? Like how to get started, and what have you found is kind of like some of the trickiest parts about building these Copilots?
I think that treating it like a staff member that you're hiring is probably the most difficult part. If you're not familiar or have that management background, you're not really specifically telling that person, that agent, that assistant, if you will, what it is they're supposed to be doing. So you should basically lean on somebody that has that experience and can offer you some guidance into really putting that specific design behind what that agent's going to do for you, and it will be much better experience if you do. Taking a general language model, it is built with just an extraordinary amount of subjects and information, and we're refining it and specifically giving it a job, specific duty, making it more relative for what you need it for.
Right. So really constraining the scope of it. I mean, think about it like a person, and then you're going to automate what that person does rather than hiring them to do the job. Or a great way to think about this is you've got people on your staff today who you're like, hey, there's 30-40% of the things they're working on that we want to make them more efficient. We want them to spend their time doing something that's of a higher value. How do we build a Copilot to take the manual labor, the manual stuff off their plate, or the interruptive stuff off their plate, and then automate it and turn it into a self-serve experience for the other colleagues internally or for the customers?
Yeah, what I've heard you talk about before, which you haven't brought up today yet, was the return on investment. So the ROI in regards to what this can do for your staff and your people. It can save time, an absolute tremendous amount of time, especially for people that have built a lot of internal documentation. We would call them standard operating procedures, for example, and we might have thousands of them for just our internal company that says how to do this. and finding and going through that information for a specific detail can be pretty difficult and time consuming, and it can just streamline all of that to a specific human language design. It's very, very nice in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, so much of this technology is I think there's so much chatter in the marketplace about how AI is going to, put people out of work. And it's really, people are just thinking, the people who say stuff like that just are thinking about this the wrong way. This technology is all about empowering people to do their best work, to do more work, to be faster at serving clients or customers or solving problems more quickly, because you're inherently building tools for them that can allow them to get the answers they need to get their job done more quickly, right? So I'm on the optimist camp when it comes to AI. So not everybody is, but let's talk about it over a beer. But with that, I think we're pretty much running out of time here. Todd, why don't we go ahead and turn the ball back over to me, and we'll wrap up with some concluding remarks. Okay. All right. Let me just make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, got it. Okay, great. Okay, so Todd, great job on the demo. There's lots to be, lots to like explore there. Just encourage everybody, if we kind of, sparked an interest, feel free to reach out to our team to explore how we could potentially support you in your journey with AI. But also just, there are a ton of resources out there to just get further educated. There's tons of great like demo videos on YouTube, tutorials. There's lots of a lot of this content. Both Microsoft and Google are producing a lot of good training content on how to use a lot of these tools. And then there's the whole kind of education universe for on-demand training, like Udemy and other providers, where you can go really just a whole level deeper and spend several hours, getting trained up on this technology. But we're trying to do our part with leading with education, and a couple things we're doing just in the next 45 days. So if you happen to be in Arizona, so this has a QR code, so grab your phone and quickly snap it. But if you're in Arizona, we're doing a lunch and learn next week in Scottsdale on Thursday the 29th, where we're doing our actual CEO, Carl Bickmore, will be leading this session. And we're going to be introducing, Microsoft Copilot for 365, Microsoft 365 to the audience, chock full of demos. Feel free to join us if you're in the Phoenix metro area. And then in the month of June, we're hosting hands-on Copilot workshops in 3 different cities. These are 4-hour hands-on sessions where we provide you with a laptop computer, a demo environment, where you're actually able to get in there and actually utilize the technology hands-on. We got 3 different cities. If you're interested in registering, email my colleague Nathan Caldwell, ncaldwell@snaptechit.com, if you're interested in signing up for any of those sessions. And then finally, if you're interested in talking with our team to go one level deeper, go ahead and snap that QR code on the left to hop on a call with us to explore how we can do either an AI assessment or a cybersecurity risk assessment for your environment. And then feel free to join us for next month's webinar, where we're going to be talking about co-managed IT services for larger organizations. If you have an internal IT team, if you think there's ways that we could help make them more productive and more successful by partnering with them, go ahead and join us to hear some client experiences about how co-managed IT works. Snap the QR code there on the right. And that's it. That's the Todd, thank you so much for giving us a great demo of how this technology works, and joining in on the conversation. And thanks everybody for sharing your questions. This was another SnapTech IT monthly webinar, and we look forward to seeing you all again next month. Take care now.